So we're here on what is technically known as a damn cold afternoon here in North Hopewell Township, Pennsylvania. We're up on top of a hill, and the one blessing today is it's not windy. In the summertime we have breeze. In the wintertime it's nothing but wind. And you appreciate it in the summer and suffer in the winter. So this morning it was 4 degrees at the airport where they check these things. I think it was maybe a couple degrees warmer here. That's 4 degrees Fahrenheit for you folks that are from down under or elsewhere where you use the centigrade scale. That's about -15, so it's pretty cold. Right now it's just a little below freezing. 0 for you, 32 for us is probably about 30 degrees. And it kind of takes me back in time to a question I asked my mentor back in the old days, Pony Bill Wagman. In that case, it was a very hot day, and I had a colt I had started and been getting some good time on at his place, and I came over and said, "Bill, is it too hot to ride?" And he just said, "Well, depends on how bad you want to ride." And boy, isn't that the way it goes? So most folks, if you looked around our county, if you find anybody horseback, they'll be in an indoor, and God bless them if they've got that. But I'm sort of happy and maybe a little bit proud of being the only maniac that's out here in this snow, in this frigid temperature, because that's how bad I want to ride. And I feel kind of blessed my whole life to want to ride that badly. Now you got to use some sense. That hot day, I was careful, didn't overdo my horse, hosed him down before I rode him, all of that good stuff. Here, I'm very aware of how slick things can be. Very aware of the fact that this snow is showing a tendency to ball up in his feet even though it's this cold. So I'm not going to do a whole lot with him. But this is Slim. He's my sort of utility horse these days. And what we're going to do, I find that it really does something for a horse to give him a little job. Even if it's kind of make work, instead of just training on him, take him out across country, pony a colt, lunge a horse off their back. Or in this case, what I'm going to do is drag some hay bales around to the pasture, because I can drive them around in the truck, but then I get icy ruts out to my pastures. And plus, that truck doesn't need any training. It's already pretty broke. So I don't have any real satisfaction out of driving out there with a load of hay. Instead, if you can pan over there, Kim, I got a bunch of hay bales, which I'll pick up kind of one by one. I'm not going to do it all on camera, don't worry. But I'll demonstrate on at least one of these how I go about this and how I start a horse to be willing to pull from the horn in a very minor way. Now, ropers, they really get into this type of thing. They log their horses, they drag things, and they teach them to pull. This horse, when he was a 3-year-old, did this one day, but it was a good winter last year as far as not much snow. So we didn't do a whole lot of this. And he only had the one little episode. So this is going to be a little bit new to him, but I'm cautiously optimistic he'll be fine. One thing that I've done, and you might have seen this in the Pony and Colts video, I've got a wrap around my horn so that I don't abrade my horn and wear it out with the rope. I'm just using a plain old soft nylon rope. It could be a lariat rope if you wanted to use that. But this will keep you from wearing on your horn. I just use vet wrap. It's pretty low tech, pretty cheap. There are all sorts of purpose-made horn wraps, and you can get saddles and have mule hide horn wraps on them when you get them. That's all great. I don't have that, so I just use up a little bit of vet wrap, and I can pony colts and do this, and it's worked out okay for me. Now, what I'm going to do here shortly, is I set these hay bales up so I can get them caught, because I don't know how you heel a hay bale that's lying down on its belly, but I can get in and catch this, and it's not going to run away from me. I know that, unless I knock it over, which can happen. So if I was a roper, I'd sit back here and toss a rope out there and look real Western. Myself, I'm just going to open up a loop and see if I can drop it over, And I may even fumble that a bit, because when it comes to anything even vaguely like roping, let's just say if there was a special ed class for ropers, I'd have flunked out of that. Now he says, what I'd like to do really, if I could, is eat that. Now that may not have looked graceful to you, but that was way ahead of my average. Sometimes I can work on that for a while before I catch it. So I'm gonna sit here and gloat for a minute. Then I'm gonna ride off. Now what you don't wanna do is say to yourself, well, it's not that heavy. That's about a 40-pound bale. I'm just gonna drag it by my arm. You know, I guarantee you that would wear on you and it pulls you off balance. Plus your arm's usually gonna be higher, and it's gonna be a higher center of gravity for the horse to pull. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just ride around this so he can see what's going on. And I'm gonna tip that bale over. Now that's a little too close, so I'm gonna play out some rope. And I'm gonna circle that bale a few times just to let him see it and maybe make it move a little bit. Now when you circle it, there is kind of a method to the madness. Now I may move this out just a little so I have more room to operate. And you can see he's not gonna be bad, because he's dragged colts around and he's done other things, and pulling is not a new idea to him. But what I like to do is circle this a few times and let it move, so that if they get scared, it's not chasing them from behind. So see, I'll just let that move and pivot, move and pivot. And I gradually start to move it a bit. Now you'll notice that I don't have it choked up under his hind legs. Also don't have it out there 40 feet. This is a 24-foot rope, give or take. So it's probably 10 or 12 feet back behind him when I get lined out. So I'll start to get it moving along behind him just a little. And just circle back around. Now, you'll notice I'm going to the right, and my rope's off my right side. Here's a way to get into trouble. You can make all the right turns you want to make, and you're going to be in pretty good shape. You can even make a pretty tight right turn, and you'll be fine. Here, I'm going to just pivot this around pretty tight to the right. See, I'm turning that right on itself to the right. But let's suppose I said, yeah, but I want to go left. Now watch what that left does. See that coming across his hip? I guarantee you, you can get into a storm doing that. Now, why am I being a jerk and doing that? Because a broke horse ought to tolerate that. But I wouldn't do that if I wasn't kind of sure of him. And I wouldn't do that if he hadn't had some experience with having a rope across that hip, doing this job and ponying colts and doing other little jobs. But that's something to remember, because you go off the wrong direction, you get that against their hip, or worst case, you get it up across their hip and it comes across you. You can find out that a 40-pound bale can leverage you right off the doggone horse. So that's probably not something you want to do. But you can see, I'm just getting him used to dragging this around here before I go ahead and do the little job of taking it down. What we have to do is we're going to get off camera, but I'm going to take this down to the pasture down there. Now here's another little challenge. How do we get this thing off? Because I'll tell you, that rope doesn't release on its own, and to set that up and lean down and grab it and loosen that is really awkward. So I came up with a crude but effective alternative. And this is a training aid that you won't, well, you could probably buy it maybe from Clinton Anderson. He might have something like this. He'd probably want more money for it than I would if I was to sell it. Well, there you go, Slim. I guess you're entitled to that. So, what is this? This is a patented rope taker offer that you can buy at my website for, let's say, $75. Or you could go down to the garden store and get yourself a plain old garden hoe, which is what this is. And it's rather crude, but I'm going to show you what I do. And like a lot of things that I do, it is somewhat effective, but definitely crude and simple. So I'm just going to get up underneath that rope with my hoe. And don't you get over there, Slim. There we go. And I'll yank on it a little bit, or I might just back away and use that to pull it off. And there you go, your rope's off. And that's just towing along because it's caught underneath. I may have the distinction of having one of the few hoe broke courses here in central Pennsylvania. And it's useful. I mean, we live in an agricultural area. You might want to hoe something down the road. So that's how I take that off. Now I'll drop this on another bale. I've only got one standing up, so if I knock it over, I'm going to have to dismount. And I got enough clothes on that I pretty near need a derrick to get on and off. But I'll drop the patented rope taker off over here. And even though it's silly, he is getting hoe broke. I mean, it's one more thing that he's had done with him or to him, however you want to look at it. And you know, they teach themselves, or they learn some tolerance when you do these kind of dumb things. And I'm a big one for playing with them. Now, he wants to play with me because this colt would never starve to death. So I'm going to play out my rope again, see if I can duplicate that great success I had before and catch myself a bale. Not perfect, but it should do. Now, ideally, I got to go off to the right, or else I'm going to get that across my hip, or I could change sides. So, one more thing for him to do. He's just going to have to pick his way right through this batch of hay and the famous hoe. Get up there. Then I'm going to take a single wrap. One thing I should say before I disappear into the sunset is I would never argue with anybody who said it would be better if you had a breast collar on your horse to do this job. It would be. This saddle fits. The colt's got a good back. The hay bales are light. Snow's slick. It's all good. But a breast collar would not be a bad thing at all. So I'm going to take off here and disappear. And I'll see you folks next time. I'm doing a little bit of that left-hand turn, but you know, he just has to put up with that. I'm back to pick up the hoe.